Hello and welcome to the CIRCOM European Political Workshop.
We are broadcasting from the European Parliament in Brussels.
A question. Were you one of the majority of people who didn't cast a vote in the European elections?
Was it because you didn't feel that European politics had any impact on your daily life?
Here in studio are journalists from 10 different countries of Europe who have asked themselves the same question.
Looking back at 2014 elections, how did you approach the challenge of engaging the audience in European politics? Ute, how did you do that in Germany?
Well, what we try to do is telling stories of ordinary people and how their life is influenced by European politics. For example, we portrayed a young Spanish woman who is working for the European Central Bank in Frankfurt. And if there wasn't any central bank in Frankfurt, she would not have come there, would not have met her husband, and would not be a citizen of Frankfurt now. We showed how European politics changed the farming system in Germany from thousands and thousands of small farms to many very specialized farms. Or another issue was our craftsmen. They fear that the open market threatens their higher education. When everybody can come to Germany to offer some services without any qualification, they had feared that it would threaten their professions. So we wanted to show by these examples that European politics can influence everybody's life.
I guess it's even harder to engage young audience. Jari, how did you do that in Finland? Did you have any innovative ways how to engage a young audience?
Yes, of course, we were using internet ever so much, much more than ever before. And also we sent 2 young journalists by train 4 weeks to Europe to discuss with young adults about their lives and how they were feeling about their future in Europe. And we were using internet streams and also Skype telephone, and then they were also in direct debates.
Was it successful, this project?
I think so, because they got over 1 million clicks in internet. So, and also all those interviews were shown in YouTube as well. So it went well on.
Well done. Great inspiration to all of us. Anna, did you have any special way how to engage the audience in Spain?
Well, in this election, the campaign was focused in local politics and, of course, in USA local, but connected with Europe. But really, this election in Spain was like a big test for the traditional Spanish parties. And this was the reality, so the TVs know that, and this was the focus, the attention, yeah.
Thank you.
What sort of obstacles that you faced in your coverage? Maybe let's start with Akos from Hungary, please.
I think to raise awareness of the audience is always a big challenge for us. In Hungary, because as we called, we had an election sandwich in 2014 with 2 domestic elections, the parliament election and the local election, and between the European Union, the European Parliament's election. So we had to encourage people to watch our programs, our coverage, and to vote, and to go for vote. And so to
and you succeeded in your actions?
Yes, if we see the numbers, the figures, how many viewers we had, yes. But if we see the
people who vote? Yeah,
the voters' turnover, it wasn't too successful. It was 29% in Hungary.
Franco, what was in Croatia, the situation?
In Croatia, before I arrived here, I've spoken with the boss of every election campaign in my company, and I asked him what to think about campaign. And he said, I don't know, I don't remember campaign was. This is the main problem.
So nobody knows that it was a campaign?
He doesn't remember what happened in campaign, because every campaign are the same. Very boring, very old-fashioned regulation, and without any debate, direct debate between candidates.
Are people vote?
Yes, 25%.
There are more than
last time.
The last election. Brendan, What are the problem, the obstacles in Ireland?
Yeah, well, very similar to Ranko. The biggest obstacle was apathy. People look at Europe as somewhere very far away that has very little to do with their daily lives. Also, for the first time since we joined the EU, there was a very negative vibe in Ireland. There was a lot of antipathy to European institutions. We feel we've been treated very badly with our economic crisis. That we took on national debt of maybe German banks, and that we took one for the team. So there's a lot of negative feeling in Ireland.
Yeah,
I think one challenge was also that the campaign time was in Finland quite short. Just 4 or 5 weeks, we had to cover ever so much during that time.
Was it intensive, even more intensive, because it was so condensed?
I don't know. I can't answer that. But yeah, we had a lot of work to do in such a short time.
I must say that we all know now that the makeup of the parliament has changed after the election due to the rise of extreme right and Eurosceptic parties. Was this the story in your home countries? Was it a story in Hungary, Akos?
Yes, if you see it in a European level, yes, it was an interesting story, of course, and the main topic of the campaign and the coverage of the election. In Hungary, the so-called Eurosceptics didn't win more votes and more seats as in 2009, so it wasn't a big difference. If we see the coverage, so our job, I think we had to treat all the parties fair. So the Eurosceptic party too, we couldn't differentiate as a public television between the parties. So it was a role of us to treat all the parties fair.
So you wouldn't say that it was one story more important than the others, because with these extreme right parties and the Eurosceptic parties, you have a contrast, you know, it's very, well...
Yeah, I think all the controversial topics are interesting and can attract audience, so we can use it in our coverage, yes.
Brendan, how was it in Ireland? Was this Eurosceptic win attractive?
There was, yeah. Well, and it was expected. There was maybe half the seats went to extreme left-wing parties, which would be new for Ireland, which reflects maybe the economic crisis. So there was a difficulty. We had to, in terms of telling the story, we had to find out why people were voting against or voting for Eurosceptic parties, and mostly due to national issues. One particular issue was emigration, and we had to show that. So we went to a Gaelic football team who had won a final 2 years previously, and when we looked at them during the campaign, 13 of the 15 players had emigrated to different countries. So that ripped the heart out of the community. So that was a way of telling the story.
So that was like one of the concrete examples how you covered the story. Uta, did you have any, was it important topic for you in the coverage after the election, this rise of Eurosceptic parties?
Yeah, the Germans kept out the extreme right out of the parliament, but we saw the rise of a Eurosceptical party called the Alternative for Germany. And I think the main question is now, is this just a result of the crisis and will disappear within some years, or will it be a main topic of the next years? Will they succeed in other elections? This is what we're talking about now.
But would you say in like all coverage you did post-election, did you do more stories about this rise of Eurosceptic and extreme right parties than about other topics?
No, it is an important topic, but it is not a main topic.
Do you agree, Akos?
Yes, I think so. It's important, but not the main. So now we are in the decision-making term of the European Parliament, so I think it can replace the place.
I think the question who would be head of the Commission, Juncker or Schulz or whoever, was much more important for the Germans.
And it's really interesting to see now how the Parliament works after this in this atmosphere.
So back to our kitchen. We had 4 days of discussion. What is the main idea that you will take home? Anna, maybe from you, from Spain? In Spain?
Yes, for us in Spain, these elections was really a result. So we see the future in Spain with the ambience. For us in the workshop, that we can check what happened here, okay, in the parliament changed.
But you took something from these 4 days?
Yes, of course. This is if you realize what happened here, and you have the view of the future, what is going to happen in Spain, the possibilities, so we can manage better the political information. You know, this is you use the word kitchen, so it's good. This is a good kitchen, and of course it's so interesting to see how in another station for another countries how
okay,
they
so
work.
Jari, what you will take with you from here, from this seminar?
Networks, of course, for
Yeah.
example.
Yes.
And of course, it was interesting to hear about the working conditions in different public stations in Europe, public broadcasting systems, because there are different, and it's nice to hear about the situations. And of course, it's good to know in practice how this Europarlament's audio unit is working, audiovisual unit is working.
Another point is could we realize how hard are the rules in the stations to work with politicians, you know.
And different from
different for each country and for
to the
each
other.
station. Yes, it's so interesting.
Akos, what is your opinion? What you bring with you in Hungary?
I think what Uta mentioned before, the importance of stories, good stories, the storytelling is very important because I think sometimes people, the audience, think that Brussels and Strasbourg are too far from there. So if we find very good stories on everyday people and the life of the everyday people and how the decisions affect their daily life directly, I think it's a good way that they can understand what happens in the European Parliament.
Mm-hmm. How will you ensure that Europe will stay on agenda in your station, Ranko? How will you push the Europe through the news bulletins?
Yes, it's.
Will you?
Yes, it's a good question. It's very difficult because when Croatia joined the European Union a year and a half, about approximately 15,000 people emigrated. Among them is 1,000 of qualified doctors, so doctors and nurses. So they found the message catch or realized the message of EU. But the question is how they stay in Croatia, not going to abroad to work and live.
Jari, how will you ensure that Europe stays on agenda?
I think I'm sure that there is coming a lot of important topics, not just constitutional problems, but everyday problems, and the legislation, what the Parliament is doing, they will come.
Mm-hmm.
I think the more you look into the European politics, the more stories you find. That's my experience. When I started to do these European stories, I knew people and they told me about other stories. So the more I do, the more I get information and the more stories come out.
Mm. So here you are. You have heard the wide variety of the views of experienced journalists from different corners of the European Union.
So the challenge remains for us the same, how to make the audience not to change the channel when we are speaking about European issue. Thank you and goodbye from Brussels.